Well, good morning, folks. Let's see how we're doing here. Ooh, isn't this coming along nicely? Ooh, it's a bit warm, I'll tell you. Hello there and welcome to Travels with Jordy. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on this classic wooden motor cruiser here in Victoria, British Columbia, along with my lovely fiancée Andrea. And well, we're fixing up a couple of old wooden boats, including this one, for some pretty ambitious cruising someday. Anyway, this last week has been a little bit different. Bit of alchemy, sort of. Well, last week's massive demolition aboard Jordy was really to achieve a workshop, and that workshop was so I could do a fair number of wood projects in the next little while, and that wood would be sapelli mahogany, my very favorite. The only problem is it's not easy to come by. It's going to be available, but for another month or so there really isn't any of sizable stuff here in Victoria anyway, but it looks like that's going to be worked out. So in the meantime, I have a couple of other little projects I needed to do anyway, because of course now that we're living on Pome for the winter and the rains are coming and the weather, there's a few more things I needed to do to Pome. Most notably the 3 doors, this one and the 2 in the wheelhouse, need some significant improvements. But for fun this week I thought I'd improve this porthole. Yes indeed, it is now beautiful bronze, but not more than a few days ago this was chrome plated. So let's go through the process of deplating via electrolysis bronze fixtures. But before we jump right into that, I will explain the few things I really need to get done to this door. If you've been watching all summer, you know that I didn't refinish this door last summer. That's why it still finishes a little bit kind of greeny. It needs to be refinished and stained and resealed and some other work done to it, and that's going to happen in the shop aboard Jordy. So this was really just a first start on it. Let me show you what's going on with the other doors. They're worse. Unlike the sliding doors that Jordy and Zephyrs has, Pome has swinging traditional doors. Hi there in there. Hello. Andrea is making what?
Soup.
Chicken soup. One of my favorite. Yum yum. Okay, so Pome has doors that swing on a hinge, and that's just marvelous. The only problem is the hardware that's on these doors is in very sketchy shape. The wood and the way they were put into here was kind of embarrassing, and it's kind of messed up, and the jambs are a total mess as well. There's another problem. They leak desperately because there's no drip edge up here. Basically, any rain that comes down over here basically follows its way in, and you can see all the streaking on the inside of the door from that water pouring inside. So there's work to be done here, as well as one other little vanity piece I won't talk about right now. If I can get this to latch again. Yeah, no, those are bad. Anyway, so I've ordered new latches, new hinges, a bunch of other parts for all the doors, and over the next couple of weeks we'll deal with fixing those up. Okay, I promise you some alchemy, or at least electrolysis. So yes, it's chromed, but it's bronze underneath. So I'd rather it wasn't chromed. And well, there's a magic way to do that, and that's by electrolysis. This chrome was put on here by electrolysis, and that lovely technology can help me out by getting it back off again. Dechroming is a much simpler process. It'll just happen. It's a bit crude, but it works, and this will be bronze sometime tomorrow afternoon. All right, let's dive into the details. For electrolysis, you need a power source. You need an anode, and you need a cathode, and lastly you need to put the anode and the cathode into a electrolyte bath. Okay, so power source, basically a 12-volt battery. The anode in this case is a stainless steel chunk of piano hinge. Stainless steel is not a very good conductor, but it will work in this case. The cathode in this case is our chromed piece of bronze, which I would rather was not chromed, and the bath of electrolyte is a blue tub of water. Well, so far it's water. Let's see if we can improve things. But before we mess with electrons, I need to prep this a little bit. The little ring comes back off here. I just scratched it just the slightest bit earlier to confirm that it was indeed bronze, and well, of course it is. Just want to clean off some gunk off of here so that makes very good contact. I have already removed the rotten old O-ring that was in there, but while I was doing that, I saw that tiny little screw. And that makes me happy because I felt a little funny deplating this with the glass in place. So I am going to remove this tiny little screw, and at the same time hope that that makes it very easy to remove the glass. Let's see now. Tiny little screw. This might require reading glasses. And the other one, these are not to be lost. Okay, so now there's a ring on the inside here, which a little bit of pressure should pop out. So if I apply that pressure to the glass, oh, there's more screws. Good thing I didn't get too excited. Let's take out some more screws. And if there's 3, there's sure to be 4. Indeed there are. Now I could remove the porthole part from the frame part, but seeing as it's all getting deplated, I don't see any reason to do that. In other words, to take this bolt out and take it apart. So I'm going to leave that together, at least to get started. Anyway, let's see if I can pop the other parts of this out. This might be a case where heat could be useful. Let's warm this up slightly. And press it out. Well, I am very sad and embarrassed to report that I broke the glass during that little process. You may have noticed it just start to crack, which, anyway. So I'll have to get a new piece of glass. Well, that can be managed. It was bedded with a very, very hard putty of some sort. So in the big picture, well, no, I'm not glad. I'm not glad I broke the glass. There's no way I can justify that savage behavior. Anyway, let's clean this up and see if we can carry on. All right, so I've got this reasonably cleaned up. We're going to get started, and we may do some further cleaning as required. So I'm going to make contact with the negative terminal. I'm actually just going to use, very conveniently, the nut here for the hinge bolt. That will make a perfect connection there. Excellent. And so that I'm doing everything at once, I'm actually just going to reconnect the beauty ring here, which will make contact on the inside, and that will deplate at the same time. Okay, let's put it in the bath. Very easy. And now for my anode. Okay, so they don't touch each other in the bath, and before long, current will start to pass between the two and start to move molecules of chrome, or whatever chrome actually is, off that surface. But to be fair, there's a trick that I have yet to employ. You will not be able to see much happening in here, and in fact, if I take my little ammeter and I put it on one of the leads here, you can see that I'm drawing next to no current, maybe something less than an amp. Okay, that's because water, believe it or not, is not a tremendously good conductor. And for this to work, we need a full circuit. Now, the tried and true way to increase the conductivity of water to turn it into a suitable electrolyte is with sodium carbonate. Not bicarbonate, but carbonate, commonly known as washing soda or washing salt. I don't have any. It's salt. So I'm going to use salt, which will have a drastic effect on improving the conductivity of my electrolyte. What's not going to be simple is going to be getting this to dissolve in this cold water with this fairly coarse salt. There we go, somewhat dissolved. And if you look carefully, you can start to see tiny bubbles forming on the porthole, and that is the beginning of the process. And we can confirm that process is underway by also checking the current that is passing through it. We now have 3 amps of current passing through it. Let's see what a little more salt will do. Okay then, it's certainly getting cloudy. Quite a substantial amount of gas coming up off the part, you can't even see it in there anymore. Now, for those of you who are familiar with electrolysis, this gas is 2 parts hydrogen to 1 part oxygen. The magic of electrolysis is that we can make hydrogen and oxygen using electricity and water. Now, you might also say, well, all that hydrogen is coming into your boat, Peter, and it could explode. Well, happily, hydrogen is lighter than air, unlike its nasty friend propane. So it will simply rise to the surface in here in the cabin and out the hatch that I have up behind me here. All right, so as we are enjoying measuring the current, let's have another go at it. Oh, we're up to 7 amps. Holy moly, this is really starting to cook. And that is further confirmed by the fairly significant amount of foamage and bubblage that's happening in here. And because I very much fall into the if some is good, more is better camp, yeah, there we go. And then there's more where this came from. At a certain point, of course, we will reach the saturation point where no more salt will dissolve into this water. Okay, funny story, or at least I think it's funny. I first discovered deplating by electrolysis when I was about 12 or 13 years old. And at that time, I was in high school in Montreal, and I played the trumpet. And about the first thing I could think of to deplate was, well, my trumpet mouthpiece. And a trumpet mouthpiece, if you don't already know, is made of brass that is plated with silver. And that's what makes it all nice and pretty. So it was quite easy to deplate the silver off the brass mouthpiece. And I thought that was pretty cool. So I shined up the brass mouthpiece with some Brasso and some elbow grease. And I took it into school. And everyone in the trumpet section says, please do mine too. It's so cool. No one had pointed out to us what the very important element to that silver plating on the brass mouthpiece was. And a week later, when the entire trumpet section had green lips, we all knew what that was. Had a lot of angry parents. Okay, what's going on in here? Nothing. Well, we know it's cooking. What we now need is patience. Not a quality I have a tremendous amount of. And woohoo, 12 amps. I think we'll keep it there. Yeah, that's a bit of current. At that rate, this 100 amp hour battery will be dead sometime overnight. So I don't think I'll leave it running overnight. I could, of course, put a charger on here, but I don't really want to leave a witch's brew with a charger plugged to short yet. No, I think I want to be around for most of this, especially as it's cooking quite a bit harder than I thought it was going to. Well, good morning, folks. Well, after wondering why this wasn't... Oh, look how well this is going. Well, anyway, last night I was kind of wondering why this wasn't working a little quicker, and well, that's because I got my polarity wrong. Those of you who are familiar with this technology would have caught that right away. But anyway, so you want positive on the part you want the chrome to leave. Anyway, after I figured that out and straightened that out this morning, this is about an hour's work. Fantastic. Anyway, there's still a little bit left to do, so we'll let that zip along. It does get quite warm because we are drawing a reasonable amount of current. We're getting up into the 16, 18 amp range now. All right, let's have another look here. Boy, that's looking grand. That's looking grand. Let me rinse it off. I have a rinse bath going here. And that looks really good. What I'm going to do is just give it a little go with a Scotch-Brite pad and see how that cleans it up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, all right, folks, I had a moment of panic. It was coming to a very clean, not bronze look. However, it is definitely, bronze. What I have discovered is it's going to take some cleaning beyond just deplating to get this to look pretty. I realize on the screen it sort of looks like that nice brown green that we want it to be, but in fact it's just a black sticky mess. Fortunately, it only takes a moment with a sander and that black goo or whatever it is gone. Probably a little action with the Scotch-Brite here will just make that a little bit smoother and more uniform. There we go. And that will tarnish very, very nicely over time. I'm also going to do some handrails from Poem that were in the, well, they're not exactly handrails, they're just little grab bars, but I have nicked these and discovered that they are indeed also bronze. So let's set that down in there. I'll have to do that sort of half at a time. All right. I'd like to take a moment to thank new crew members who came aboard through the YouTube membership system. And they are Wornout Wrench, Ted Jacoby, Franz van Dirk, Gilbert Arzner, Eric Patterson, Bjorn Andone, Mr. Lumpkin, Frank Wilson, and Brian Twilligar. Thank you all so very, very much for coming aboard as new crew members. I can tell you, whatever I'm sanding off of here makes my nose tingle a bit. So how about we employ just a modicum of safety here? Okay. It looks to me like the actual handle part of these handles are brass, and that would perhaps explain why they come out pink when I do the deplating, which might also tell me why this little threaded stud bolt thingy here is also gone a bit pink. Perhaps it is in fact brass. Anyway, it all cleans up very nicely, and I'm super pleased. Actually, to be fair, I wonder if these are all brass. If that's bronze, this is brass. No harm. I seem to be having some difficulty remembering to do the word of the week, so let's see if we can catch up. 3 weeks ago, when the word was pub, the winner was Tasmanian Viking. And 2 weeks ago, when I forgot to do a word altogether, we'll call it cruising. Seems appropriate. The winner was Norman Roberts 6680. All right, gents, get a hold of me and we'll make sure you get your Travels with Geordie Word of the Week t-shirt. Okay, now that is nice. That is really, really, really nice. Woohoo. And while I'm on a roll, let's say the word of the week this week is, well, you probably guessed it, bronze. All right, with that looking absolutely gorgeous, I want to experiment with rubbing it with oil. I'm going to use mineral oil. I looked it up. They said you can use all kinds of oils. I have mineral oil. We'll give this a go. What I'm really hoping for is not anything dramatic, but for it to sort of do its tarnishing to that brown green in a sort of uniform way, which I'm hoping that the oil will achieve. It certainly looks lovely now, though. Wow. And these cleaned up really nicely, but of course they're brass, and brass will tarnish very, very quickly. And I am no expert at finding ways to keep brass from tarnishing. I have tried a number of things, including my favorite tung oil, and it didn't seem to help much. So I'm actually going to just oil these as I'm going to oil the bronze, and perhaps that will provide just a little bit of protection, or at least it'll even out the rate at which it tarnishes, which is all I'm really hoping to do. Now, I'm sure many of you have your own favorite technique for keeping brass looking reasonable, and I'd love if you would share that with me down in the comments, because I have another piece of brass on the boat that I'm having trouble keeping looking nice, and that is the dash panel that I made years ago, and I have not been able to find a way to keep it looking reasonably nice. And good morning. Well, these look just as lovely as they did yesterday. All right, so they've had oil on them all night. Not that I believe that it's going to soak in, really, but we'll wipe it off now and start to put some of this back together. Okay, so these, pretty straightforward. These will go straight back onto Poem and look lovely. Very, very pleased with those. This has a rather glaring deficit due to my inability to remove the glass without destroying it. So we need to cut a new piece of glass. Well, that's pretty straightforward. All right then, well, I am very fortunate to have some glass and in fact to have the means to cut it. Excellent. Now the piece of glass goes inside here, which is the same size as the outside of the little retaining ring, which I did not bother deplating because I thought maybe there was no need, and a little contrast is kind of nice. Anyway, so it'd be the same shape as the outside of this. So I could trace this, but then it might be slightly too large based on the offset of this. So I happen to have found a piece of tape that is basically just a little smaller, or shall I say a roll of tape, that is just a little smaller than that retaining ring. So I think this is what we're going to use to mark and cut with. Now I'm going to actually just scribe against it with the cutter, but to make sure I'm not drifting, I'm going to mark it as well. I don't think I've ever cut a circle in glass before, and I haven't even bothered to look it up on the internet, because I think it's basically scribe it and then a lot of relief cuts, and we'll see how we do. Okay. For those of you who are proficient glass cutters, I'm sorry for the buckshy attempt I'm making here. Especially for you, Scott, if you're watching. Now, they have special glass cutting trammels that would do this in the blink of an eye, but I don't have one, so... Okay. Shall I use my fancy glazier's pliers here? Nope. That broke right into the glass. So obviously my original cut was not good enough. Maybe a little of this business. Okay, this was harder than I thought it was going to be. Let's. All right, let's try that again, shall we? Holy moly. So I'm actually going to scribe, mark on the tape, and then I'm going to freehand cut this time because I don't think I had a decent cut. So we'll make our mark with the tape, which is already slightly smaller. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to freehand this. Scott, I know you're gritting your teeth watching this. In a moment, I'll show you all a beautiful stained glass panel that Scott Odekirk made for me many years ago. If you've been watching a long time, you'll recognize it. Okay, I've been all the way around. So now I'm going to try again to do my little relief cuts. Being very careful not to cut inside the circle. Okay. Grab the grazier's pliers here and see if I can start to take any of these segments out. Crikey. Maybe some of the tapping. Oh, I like when the sound changes. Woohoo! That looks good. That looks good. That looks good. Oh, good, 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 good. Excellent. I'm not going to get too fussed more than that. Obviously, I'm going to have to sand the outside of this to make it a little cleaner, but whoo! Okay. Excellent. Well, let me show you that stained glass panel that I promised you that Scott Oderkirk did for me many years ago. It's just gorgeous and I love it. If you look carefully in this light, you can see a beautiful painting of Geordie. When it's darker, this is actually backlit from inside and it's just sends a lovely glow out into the aft cabin. Scott Oderkirk is a really interesting fellow. He's a wooden boat enthusiast and he has a channel, The Wooden Boat Experience, as well as he's writing a book, which I'll tell you more about in an upcoming episode. Okay, now, because it's me, I'm going to bed this in butyl tape. My very favorite stuff. Perfectly lined up. All right, so that's good. Very good. And there we go. Very, very, very nice. And then put it back in the frame. Let's go put it back on the door. And here we go. Absolutely lovely. A massive improvement over the old chrome porthole. Just love, love, love the way that looks. Now you're probably going to say, Peter, where's the gasket? And it's very true. When I took this all apart, I did indeed remove any sort of gasket that was in here. Well, I have at least an interim solution. Enter the ubiquitous hair tie. Well, anyone who lives with a woman knows exactly what I'm talking about. These things tend to be all over the place, and if I can just get that to snap on there properly, I now have a reasonable gasket, at least until I can find something a little more accurate. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing in the top right corner of your screen. If you've really enjoyed it, please consider supporting the show in the link in the bottom right or down in the description. And if you want to see the episode where I built the cabinet and then Scott Oderkirk built the glass panel for it, that is up in the top left of your screen.